Good morning, everyone. Welcome to SMMT Summit for 2025. Now, some of you probably noticed that we've had to change the agenda around relatively the last minute. This was to accommodate our guest speaker today. Today's guest speaker will not be the England manager, Thomas Tuchel, nor have we invited Spurs chairman Daniel Levy or any of the director of Manchester United, because we wanted to hear from someone with a strategy, and a strategy that just might win. So, this afternoon we will hear from the Secretary of State for Business, Johnny Reynolds, with whom we've been working on your behalf to try and shape the industrial strategy. Now, I believe that with some more support from other departments and rapid implementation, it might just be that winner. And it is needed more than ever because, yet again, we meet in those cursed, uncertain times. Discussions of trade wars and how we avoid them are overshadowed by real wars in Ukraine, in Gaza, and under the spectre of an even greater conflict over Iran. Now, despite the uncertainty, government should be commended for signing 3 trade deals in as many months with India, the EU reset, and most recently with the United States. And we applaud the government not just for getting a deal with the US, but the first to do so, and the only one so far, and one that puts automotive first. Now, these should be foundations upon which we build, floors, not ceilings, because they shelter us from the worst of threatened tariffs. But whilst there is more detail to discover and define, our ambitions still remain high. We are, by nature, an industry of optimists, but also realists. The UK has restored political stability, and this gives us an advantage. Our skills base is strong, our workforce talented and flexible, but our challenges still remain great. Electricity costs remain the highest in the world. Transport costs are also the highest in the world. And internationally, we rank worst for business rates, and among the worst, surprisingly, for the burden of government regulation for capital allowances. And with international conditions causing problems beyond our control, it makes sense to ease the burdens we do control. That means we need a whole government approach to competitiveness, which is why government's long-sought industrial strategy launched just yesterday is absolutely critical for us. It recognizes automotive as a pillar of advanced manufacturing, one of only 8 growth sectors, that we are integral to the world-leading innovation that creates the high-value jobs, that builds the wealth, that delivers the economic growth vital to this country's future. Now, our new report describes our ambitions and the realistic paths to realize them, tangible ambitions. Return to the UK to a top 15 global manufacturing hub, a domestic market of over 2.2 million passenger cars, as well as commercial vehicles and HGVs, the majority of which will be zero emission, and £50 billion of value added over the next decade. Prizes we can reach standing on 3 vital foundations. First, a market where demand and regulation are in balance. Secondly, industrial competitiveness, where our costs and taxation are comparable to our competitors. And thirdly, trade, as fair, open, and free as we can make it. Now, as you know, SMMT represents not only manufacturers, but also the supply chain and those who service and repair our vehicles. And recently, government was prepared to look under the bonnet of the ZEV mandate and assess the problem. The mandate was being tweaked, retuned, if you will, but it may yet need to be fully repaired because we have invested in net zero for decades. But that journey has become harder than we ever envisaged. Brexit, COVID, trade wars, now devastatingly real wars. Consumer confidence is just not there. So we've had to create a market with our own incentives. Discounts of £6.5 billion since the mandate came into effect some 18 months ago. £6.5 billion straight to the bottom line. £6.5 billion that could have been invested in R&D to get to the destination the mandate demands. Now, that level of incentives is unsustainable. The Chancellor talks of the need to balance the nation's books. We need to balance our books just as urgently. Now, these industry incentives, again, are higher than anywhere else in the world. Moreover, we incentivize while government disincentivizes. The expensive car supplement, that alone imposes an effective fine of more than £360 million on EVs bought this year. Treasury described the package of support our businesses offer our employees as contrived. And taxing commercial vehicles, double cab pickups, these are the types of vehicles used in trades and farming, defining them as passenger cars. Again, nowhere else in the world does this. So I can tell you that global investors, the ones we all need, are not impressed. So we need Treasury to reduce the burden, to create the fiscal incentives to turbocharge the market despite all that uncertainty. Now, we conducted a survey of UK automotive business leaders, and we published that today. And that shows confidence in the global trading has, perhaps unsurprisingly, all but evaporated. Business costs have risen, and nearly half of them have seen profits fall. Yet despite that, our fundamentals remain strong. And in spite of all of that, over half of those businesses have recently secured investment or plan to invest in UK operations. As I said, we are an industry of optimists. That confidence may be fragile, but with decisive action, that confidence can be renewed. So cut the costs our rivals do not face. As I said, we pay the steepest price for electricity in Europe, more than double the EU average. Our electricity taxes, again a regulatory impact, are 6 times higher than those of our EU counterparts. Total cost £200 million a year higher than our closest competitors. With structural handicaps like these, it's amazing we can convince global investors to bet on us, but somehow we do. So we support government for investing in long-term energy infrastructure, applaud them for recognizing the need to improve grid connections and planning rules, and we wholeheartedly embrace reform of the industrial energy costs that could cut our sky-high electricity bills by 1/5. But we need to go further. To level the playing field, the proposed relief on standing charges, which will apply to battery manufacturing, for instance, should also apply to automotive companies who will become more dependent on electricity as they increasingly build not internal combustion engines, but EVs. In the longer term, we are promised greater security and resilience, lower costs. But remember the great John Maynard Keynes, the long run is a misleading guide to current affairs. In the long run, we are all dead. We need a compelling offering now that redefines the UK's appeal as a place to invest in, to produce in, to buy from, and to sell to. The UK is a trading nation. Automotive is fundamental to that reputation. We're Britain's biggest exporter of manufactured goods, the world's 6th biggest car market, Europe's 2nd biggest market. Amidst volatile geopolitics and a shifting kaleidoscope of tariffs, we need to get closer to our partners, open up new markets, find new sources of raw materials. The EU reset must deepen. Rules of origin made more open, renewed investment in battery production, localizations, shared supply chains, avoid tariffs on EVs and batteries at all costs, closer relationships, not deeper regulation. As I said, the government has made an excellent start, and we welcome the government's long-term industrial strategy. But it must be a beginning, not an end, a foundation upon which we build rather than just a statement of virtue. The start of swift action. And in a world of uncertainty, I appeal for these things: perspective, understanding, and the willingness to act fast. So we wait to hear from the game plan from the man himself this afternoon, because with the right conditions, I believe that before England win the World Cup, or Spurs, or God help us, United win the Premiership, we will have a strategy that makes us the best country and the best sector in which to invest. Thank you very much.